Hi, this is Michael Talis with the Talis team. Today I'm sitting down with Craig Smyser. He's an agent in Austin, Texas, and Austin is one of the common destinations for people escaping California. So, Craig,
Mhm.
why won't you introduce yourself?
I'm Craig Smyser. I'm the broker owner of 1835 Realty. 1835, the name comes from an important year in Texas history. That is the year that the War for Texas independence began. And I've been selling real estate since 1999. And I am located northwest of the downtown area. Most of the areas I serve, Austin has gotten too big for agents to serve the entire area. You're going to find me working on the west and north sides of the city and the suburbs in those directions.
So, how many people are working in your brokerage?
The brokerage is me and support staff. Yeah, it
Oh,
is.
got it.
Austin has a very high number of single agent brokerages. We've got a couple thousand of them in
Oh,
the Austin area. Yeah, it's very common here, but rather unusual in other places from what I understand. I have like licensed staff, but in terms of if someone calls me, they're going to be working with me.
got it. Got it. So, if somebody is thinking about moving to Texas, give me a few reasons why they would pick Austin and what's special about Austin.
Okay. Well, first of all, I mean, one of the main reasons that people come to Texas is for jobs, right? This is a very business-friendly state, has been for a long time, and really over what the last few years have brought us is just a rapid increase in what we've seen ever since the Great Recession times.
Right.
We see a lot of California companies locating their headquarters here. So that brings out a lot of Californians to Texas overall. Austin obviously has its share of headquarters. I think probably one of the larger ones to come out of California our way are going to be both Oracle, Tesla. Those are both headquartered here now. And so that I would say that the jobs are the biggest thing. Beyond that, there are people from California. I generally find they come here for two reasons. One is the tech jobs. Two
Hmm.
is they're tired of California and look at the politics of Texas to be a little bit different. Now, though that flies a little bit differently when you're talking about Austin specifically, because someone who's leaving California for the change in politics, Austin itself is a little different than the rest of the state, right? So we
That's
see that.
understandable.
Right. Yeah. So we see that little bit of dichotomy there. But the other thing too, Californians like this place, especially Southern Californians, it reminds them geographically of it. Most people who've not visited Texas, they think of true like cowboys, flatland, tumbleweed blowing across, and that's West Texas. But Texas is an enormous state, and here in Central Texas, we have rolling hills, lakes, although really every lake but one in Texas is man-made. So we've got lakes, rolling hills. It's green when it's not a drought. You all can relate to that as well.
Yep.
Right? And so it does remind a lot of people of the look and feel of Southern California that way. And so those are definitely things that attract people to this area.
Yeah, it's definitely different. But if somebody's coming to you, what will be the first thing you need to educate them on from point of view of situating them in the Texas mindset?
Oh, well, there are a variety of different things, right? And a lot of it just depends specifically on how much they're aware, how much time they've spent in Texas. From a real estate perspective,
Hmm.
there are some key differences, right? And one of the first things, we're known as a low tax state,
Hmm.
but we are not a no tax state, right? Although we have no personal income tax
Right.
from the state level, we have property taxes that are higher than most people expect given the reputation, right? And especially in California, I never remember what the prop number is, but y'all are limited as to
13.
how much. Okay, so Prop 13, right? It limits you on how much it can increase. We don't have anything close to that. We do have for owner occupied homes The cap it can raise each year is 10%. That's a far cry from what y'all have with Prop 13. And so our property taxes and our property tax rates are just higher. It was kind of been a common rule of thumb that I would tell people, hey, if you're coming here and buying a similar type home to what you have, it's going to be a lot less expensive here, but your actual dollar amount in property taxes is probably going to be the same.
Got
right?
it.
Our tax rate is higher. So
do you have a cap on the tax rate, or
no, there's no
it
cap
varies per
on the
county?
I mean, there's no cap on the tax rate itself, especially if voters would approve higher tax rates, which often is something that comes on the ballot here. But I would say now our tax rates have been coming down as the value of properties has been rapidly increasing. I would say now it's common to find between 2 and 2.5%. Definitely we've got them below. And if you're in a new construction area, a lot of the ways some new construction areas outside of city limits get funded just generally means they're going to have higher property tax rates, probably for the first 10, 15 years of a new subdivision.
Interesting. Yeah, we here we're capped at 1% and plus some measures. But again, the property values probably make up for the difference.
Yeah.
So in the area where you're working, what would be a typical home? And the other question is a balance between condos, townhome versus single family homes.
Yeah. There's no like typical home for the Austin area, right? As you can imagine, there's going to be a wide spread. If I look at the entire MLS, so it's going to be Austin and all the areas around it, our median price last month, reported for the last month, which would be June of 2022, was $537,000. Now, if I'm going to look at just within the city limits of Austin, that's going to rise to a little over $600,000. And of course, that's going to have all types of homes included in there. So if we're looking at condos, those are going to be higher simply because our concentration of condos is downtown, which is a more expensive market than if I'm looking at a single family detached home. Well, it depends on where. Am I in one of the, farther out suburbs, or am I in a place like Westlake Hills, which would be one of the more expensive places in the Austin area? So it's going to vary greatly. I would say right now in our market, the least expensive home you're going to find within, say Austin and the first or second ring of suburbs is going to be $350,000. And that's not necessarily going to be a great home. You're really going to be more in the $400,000 to $500,000 for a decent, nice starter home for a family.
And how big will it be? That's another question.
Again, it'll depend on where it is, right? The closer in, the smaller it gets. But further out, I mean, we just put a young family under contract on Friday at a price of $450,000, and it's a 2-story home, about 2,200 square feet. It hasn't been updated. It was built in the mid '90s, and still looks like the mid '90s. But that kind of and that was if you were to drive from there straight to downtown, that's probably about a 35-minute drive.
Got it. Doesn't sound too bad in terms of the drive time.
Yeah, it's all relative. If you're going at rush hour, of course, that's going to be longer. But that would be just hopping on and heading down.
So, in terms of one thing that I wanted to understand, how typical is to have HOA communities, because in our area, most of the homes are standalone. No HOAs, no community, no facilities to maintain.
Yeah, most of ours you're going to find are HOAs, especially when we're talking about the suburbs, right? Within the city limits of Austin itself, it's going to be less common just because it's older, right? We didn't have a lot of HOAs being built when houses were being built in the 50s and 60s and 70s. So it's less common in there. But when you start to get to the suburbs, most everything is going to be in a master planned community. It's going to have swimming pools and tennis courts and all of that sort of thing. If I look at the place that I live in one of the larger master plans in the area that's was started in in the mid 80s, really reached its prime in the late 90s through about 2012 or 13. And we've got about 4,500 homes in there, 3 elementary schools,
Wow.
a middle school, covers almost about 4,500 acres. It's almost, we've got a
3
lot of,
elementary schools. It's a big community.
it's a big place. Yeah, a lot of land that's not used, a lot of preserved land and things like that. So it seems like, oh, 4,500 homes, 4,500 acres, everyone's got an acre. No, it's most of us are sitting on about a quarter of an acre, right? So, but that's Steiner Ranch is the name of that community, and it's very typical for what we're going to have in our area. I don't find that now an HOA may be run well or it may not be run well, but that's one thing. But in terms of the rules, generally you're going to find the same common sets of rules, right? You can't run a business out of your home, at least one that's going to attract clients, right? I mean, if you're working from home, that's of course perfectly fine, or something if you're doing some sort of direct sale thing, you're selling Airbon or that whatever it might be. Those of course are all permitted, but you can't have clients and hanging out a shingle that people are going to be stopping by all the time. You can't park an RV at your house. You can't have your boat sitting in your driveway. You can't leave your garbage cans out all week. You can't paint your house pink. You can't, these are the typical types of things that I think for most people, that's what they're looking for in a community. So they're okay with it. If you're someone who wants to park your RV at your house, well, just don't buy
Find
an
a
HOA.
different house.
Yeah.
But how much are typical HOA fees? What is the range of?
It'll vary. Sometimes you'll see them if they don't have many amenities. It could be $200-300 a year versus a place that's got a lot of amenities. Maybe it's gated that could run anywhere from $2,000-3,000 a year. So,
well, it doesn't sound too scary when you prorate it monthly.
Yeah.
So how is the market? How is supply of homes, and what should people expect in terms of house hunting?
Yeah, well, things have greatly changed in our market. Austin experienced real growth in price over the last couple of years, more than we had ever seen before. So we were one of those markets that was really hot. And so as the market begins to change, or it has already changed here, we are seeing prices decline. Not a lot, but prices are coming down here. And so that is a result of inventory levels that have risen. And I would say we started to see this change in May, and it got a little, picked up speed in June. So where for the much of the last couple of years, we were running with a month's supply of homes that might measure from a couple of weeks to maybe just over a month. Now we're sitting more in the 3 to 4 month time frame. Of course, a lot of it depends upon how you're measuring that.
Right.
If I use the pace, if I'm measuring inventory based on the pace of sales in the last month or two, then we have a lot more months of homes for sale than if I'm using the last 6 months of pace of sales as my basis.
Well, it
I
makes
think
sense.
because of the slowdown, I just want to use, say, June and July's pace. And in that case, we're sitting with a 3 to 4 month supply of homes.
So what would be balanced market in your area?
Well, we are definitely starting to see, while it may statistically not be the sellers or the buyer's market, which I think most people call it about 6 months, we are definitely seeing with the pace of the inventories rising, prices are coming down. The number of price reductions is up 5-6-fold from what we would see, say, a year ago. And the number of contracts written is down for sure. And so prices are coming down. We're able to negotiate, off the list price in many cases. One of the things that's very popular right here that we are offering with a lot of our listings or asking for many of our buyers is closing cost contribution to buy down the interest rate, right? That's been one of the biggest issues with our market is how fast the interest rates rose and chopping out the buying power for people. Well, in the current climate, we can buy down that interest rate either on a temporary basis over, a 3-year phase in or on a permanent basis to get people down to what rates were at the beginning of the year. And that a seller is very willing to do that because they don't have to bring the price down as far. And so we are seeing a lot of that in our market, definitely. So it
Interesting.
is, yeah. So if you are moving to our market right now, while prices are higher than they were last year and the year before, it is a much easier buying experience. Not a lot of multiple offer situations. In fact, we were told we were in a multiple offer situation, and the agent's like, "Can you send over your highest and best?" And after talking to my client, I advised them, and they took my advice. We replied with, "No, we've submitted the offer. We've submitted. If you'd like to counter us, please do so." And we ended up getting it at what we submitted the offer for. So
That's nice.
yeah, like I said,
So
it's very different. So like I said, it is a good time for buyers from that perspective.
so what's the time on the market right now? How long homes are staying on the market?
Frankly, it's a little bit
Roughly.
still hard to say, right? Because our days on market are increasing. If I look at the active homes, it's not
Right.
uncommon at all to see an active home that's been on the market for 60, 70, 80 days. Do we still have some that sell the first weekend? Sure, we do.
Yeah.
It's just not anywhere near what it used to be. But, statistically, it's hard to show these numbers right now because as we're talking here in early August, the most recent numbers we have are for sales in June that are from contracts written in April and May.
That's
So,
true.
right. So the market has changed drastically. So, I look at a different set of numbers, and while I don't have the sales prices, I can tell you that statistically in much of our market, prices are down about 4%. When I look at what's being asked, I think we're closer today with unreported stats to about an 8 or 9% decline. That we're still up for the year.
Comparing with the
We
last
were up
month
20.
or from previous year?
No, I'm talking from our peak in
Got it.
April, May, right? So we're
Got it.
seeing month to month declines, not year to year. We're still up from the beginning of the year. I expect by the end of this year, we'll still be up, right? So that's
Makes
but
sense.
not, yeah. So that, of course, I kind of given up predicting what the market's going to do a long time ago because I don't seem to. I can tell you what's happening now, what's happened, but it's really hard for me to tell you what's going to happen.
Oh, God. And when is the school year starts? Because we're expecting in our area, it's probably next week, most schools start. And we expect people to come back, and there may be another boost of activity when
Yeah,
everybody's back in town.
yeah. Most schools around here are going to start around mid-August. Next week is a very common time frame for a lot of the schools around here, which the last 2 years have been very atypical. They haven't been seasonal when we look at buyer patterns and things like that. But traditionally, our market begins to slow down in mid-July because if you're not under contract by then, you're not going to be in the house for the first day of school. So
Right.
that's a seasonal thing that hasn't been very seasonal the last 2 years, but this year we see a little bit more of that. But yeah, definitely for people with kids, the school calendar, and definitely certain neighborhoods, certain areas are more prone to the school calendar. If you're someone who's buying a high-rise condo in downtown Austin, that's not those buyers are not very geared around the school year. Some are, but for the vast majority, they don't have school-aged kids. And whereas a neighborhood like I live in, most everybody's got school-aged kids, so it's much more prone to the calendar.
All right. All right. So tell me a little bit about the schools. Are there better areas? What people should look for when they're trying to evaluate schools?
Yeah, absolutely, right. Just like any big city, you've got schools that aren't that great, and you've got schools that are phenomenal. And most of my clients are looking for homes that are zoned to higher performing schools. I think most people around here are going to point to a few districts and then a few particular high schools. The Westlake Hills area that I mentioned earlier, kind of more of the exclusive area, that's in the Eames School District. It's not a large district; it's a one high school district. Lake Travis is another high performing school district with one high school. Then you start looking at larger districts where the district overall is not going to be uniformly great, but a couple of good high schools. We've got Vandergrift High School, Westwood High School, Cedar Park High School. Some of the ones that are just that their scores are higher and a little bit more known for both extracurricular and academic success.
Yeah, that makes sense. I heard that the football stadiums around schools in Texas are much better than what we have here.
Yeah, the largest one is up in the Dallas area, seats around
Oh,
20,000. Here in the Austin area, they're not that big, but they are definitely big. Friday Night Lights, it is a big thing. Yeah, absolutely.
so I guess you should look for homes that are a little further away from high schools if you don't want to get
Yeah, if
any
you don't
influence.
don't want to hear the band playing and the crowd cheer and all that sort of stuff during a Friday night, absolutely.
Yeah. So in terms of cultural, recreational, what people should know, because well, it's an urban center, but
Yeah.
what kind of cuisine are you known for?
Food wise, definitely going to be Tex-Mex, right? Not quite your Mexican food, right? The Tex-Mex take on it. Breakfast tacos, of course, are definitely a big thing around here. So, but Austin really has become a food town. There are some really high performing restaurants here. I'm partial, barbecue. There are different styles of barbecue around the country, but Texas barbecue, brisket is the king of meats in our world on a smoker. And some of the finest Texas barbecue joints are here in the Central Texas area around Austin. So barbecue, Tex-Mex, breakfast tacos being a subset of the Tex-Mex, that's a huge thing around here as well. But no, very much a food town. It has become over the last 10 or 15 years. Absolutely.
So theaters, museums, what kind of entertainment you should expect?
Top of the list is going to be just live music, right? Austin has had the moniker the live music capital of the world for many years. A lot of good venues for that. And as Austin has gotten more expensive and has grown, that's become a big problem, right? Because as we know, a lot of musicians aren't earning a whole lot of money, right? So it's becoming an affordability issue. So it really is kind of impacting. But when you go to a restaurant, it's not just a bar, but it's just a regular restaurant. It's not uncommon at all just to have live music any night of the week. And so live music is definitely a huge part of the culture around here. In terms of theater, we've got a couple live, that'll bring in kind of like the, Broadway in Austin sort of a thing. But there's a lot of smaller type venues that would do more original sorts of things. And then just beyond that, we've got some museums, but we're not a huge city, right? We are growing fast, but we're not a huge city. So it's not gonna, you're not gonna, mistake yourself for being in New York or Chicago or LA when, doing
Washington, D.C. for museums.
Right, yeah, exactly. But even though it's hot in the summer here, being outdoors is a big part of the Austin lifestyle. Being on the lakes, especially during the summer.
So
a lot of hike and bike trails. How's hot? This has been a hot summer. Our area in Austin is you go back hundreds of years, it's very cyclical. Years of wet and then years of dry. And we've really just embarked on the start of what I imagine will end up being a couple of years of dry. And so this summer, probably by the time it's done, we'll probably have 90 or 100 days of triple digits. So it's probably about 102 today, fairly common. And we haven't had any substantial rain in months. A lot of but Lake Travis, which goes up and down based on the rainfall, we'll fill that up in a couple of weeks whenever the rains start up again.
So how is the humidity?
A few years. Humidity, I find it to be low. Someone from Houston would find it to be low, but we do tell people do come here and say, "Oh, it seems kind of humid for being so dry." But I don't see it. So
yeah, it's cyclical. You don't know what to expect tomorrow. So tell me, like, you're in Austin for a while, so what would be a few best things you want to share and things that you hate about Austin, or at least don't like as much?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying one of the things that kind of ties in the best things and what we were just talking about, which is the Austin culture. I have a video series. We'll release episode 100
Oh,
next
wow.
week, called Discover Austin. And you can search for it on YouTube, Discover Austin. But we highlight the culture of Central Texas, whether it's big things that people are familiar with, like, a visit to the state capitol, or Lady Bird Lake, things like that, to just, restaurants, places that everyone knows about, places that we think you should know about. I pair up with a food blogger for those. We visit just kind of, the Cathedral of Junk, right? Some guy has built a cathedral of junk in his backyard. Very Austin, weird kind of thing. So lots of stuff like that. So that, for someone who's coming here to visit or wants to just kind of learn about the culture of the area, that's a great resource. But in terms of, what someone here is just going to enjoy their time doing, there's a lot to do. Depends on what it is that they like to do, from that perspective. And I'm sorry, what was
I'm just saying, like,
back
from your personal view, what will be the
the
best
best
things
right?
and the worst things?
Yeah, I would say some of the best things I've already mentioned, right? I think the food is phenomenal. I love barbecue.
I'll put a link in the description of this video.
Yeah, sounds great. So the food is one great aspect. The people are very nice, right? It's Texas hospitality, although now there's some people from so many other places, it's hard to find a lot of native Texans around these days. The jobs are good. We've got great jobs. That's obviously what brings people here. I would say what's on the negative side, right? Well, one, if you don't like really hot weather, summer's going to be a little bit rough on you, but our winters, of course, are pretty mild. We'll dip below freezing probably a few days each winter. But the winters are generally mild. The biggest problems that I see just come with the growth of a city that transformed very quickly. We were number one on places to live. It was a U.S. News and World Report for several years, right? So that brings people in. And the very reasons that people want to come here, when you get an explosion in population, changes the city, right?
Right.
Homelessness is insane. I don't want to get into the politics of it, but the homelessness has gone just through the roof in the city of Austin.
Well, sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Crime rate, right? Crime has, as you just add more and more people, the crime rate has gone up. So just understanding where you should and shouldn't go and just being smart about things, you can alleviate that. But we still go down. We eat great restaurants downtown. I would say I'm downtown much more than my wife is, just because of the course of work and the things that I do. But there are great, those I would say some of the great aspects, some of the negative aspects of being here.
Well, California probably has a head start on homelessness. I mean, at least comparing with you guys.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but unfortunately we're catching up. So
yeah. Well, hopefully we'll find a good solution for that. So if people are thinking about moving to Austin, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
You can find my website is realestateinAustin.com. It's a long one, email address.
I'll put in the description.
Yeah, Craig at realestateinAustin.com. Call, text. Generally, unless I'm with clients, I'm generally accessible and get back to people quite quickly. But yeah, that's the best place to start.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I hope our listeners will appreciate the information and get in touch with Craig.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to help.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael.